You know, make no mistake about it, there are some gun owners out there that have reservations about voting for Trump. And that's what we're going to look at today as we take a glance at some of the good things he's done in favor of Second Amendment rights and also some of the things he's done against it. We're going to compare that, of course, to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and even take a look at J.D. Vance's record to see if there is a side of the aisle that gun owners should be looking at if protecting your rights means a lot to you. But of course, I want to hear from y'all too. Is there anything that I talk about in this video that maybe you didn't know about, or something that maybe surprised you all together? However you feel about my opinions, or if you want to leave your own down below, make sure you do that. Let's go and jump right in. Now, one thing that opponents of Trump will bring up is the fact that he banned bump stocks. And after the Las Vegas tragedy, he definitely did. I think it took a lot of gun owners by surprise, the fact that there was this kind of knee-jerk reaction. Now, emotional type of reactions, which is what it was, are never good. You have to have a level head when you look at these things, and as tragic as that was, you almost have to give it time to sink in a little bit before you start making judgments, because almost everything immediately and in the days following it has to be based on emotion to some extent. And so while that was very hard for everybody to watch, that is one of the things that kind of is against Trump when it comes to restricting rights instead of looking at the person that did it. Now, after the bump stock ban, I think it took 6 years, it was eventually overturned. And it was overturned by the Supreme Court. And this is one of the things that Trump did that really helped gun owners a ton. And that's put 3 pro-gun Supreme Court justices up there. And those guys are on the Supreme Court for a very long time, most of the time, right? So in key decisions, you're going to want to have those guys that look at the Second Amendment favorably, right? They go by the Constitution. And when you have Supreme Court justices like that, I think people forget like how important that was in the 2016 election. You could have had Hillary Clinton that appointed justices, and we know which way that would have went. And the fact that you had 3 in that time period was absolutely huge. So you have those 3 there, and they'll be there for a long time. And we see what the Supreme Court did in 2022 with the New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. They essentially said, hey, if you're going to pass any kind of gun restriction, you have to compare that to how we've treated firearms throughout history. Meaning you can't just ban things because they are modern, right? You have to basically look at modern firearms, modern technology through a historical lens, essentially. So that Supreme Court was actually a really big one. Another thing that Trump did that I don't think gets enough credit is signing House Joint Resolution 40. This was one of those laws that was put in there that is actually fairly terrifying when you think about it, because essentially what it would do is say, hey, if you're on Social Security and you're receiving any kind of benefits there, and you have any kind of mental health, medications, or you're getting any kind of mental health help at all, and you're on Social Security, you are automatically thrown into the NICS system, which will restrict you from owning a firearm. This doesn't mean by having a mental health issue, and this is part of the stigma around mental health, right? We clearly have an issue in the States because there's so many people that just refuse to look at mental health for what it is, right? It can be treated. It's super treatable. How many people are around us that, yeah, maybe they go on a medication, right? I'm not saying that one way is best or the other, right? But there are solutions to help people with mental health. You just got to kind of open up to them, make sure there are facilities where people can go to get the help they need, right? But now you're saying, oh, well, they have some kind of mental deficiency. Whatever that is. Could be something simple, could be something outrageous. But let's just be honest. A lot of people that are on Social Security, if they have some kind of mental impairment, does that mean they're not afforded the same constitutional rights? It's kind of like that firearm retirements thing they were talking about. Like if you're too old to drive, they want to take away your firearms. Well, President Trump signed that Resolution 40, and I think that kept, I don't know, 75,000 people, according to the GOA, off of the NICS background check system. Another thing that President Trump did is remove this fee. I didn't even know this was a thing. Again, this article comes from the GOA, and it's a really good one. But anyways, there was this fee that was associated for firearms businesses. Now, some of the bigger companies can absorb this no problem, but the fee was over $2,000. Well, President Trump annexed that one, and that is great for any small business, right, at all, right? $2,000 is a lot of money. And so they were able to get that struck down. So now gun shops or gunsmiths, anybody in the gun industry doesn't have to worry about essentially losing out on $2,000 because of this terrible fee that was associated with it. President Trump was also able to fix something that Obama kind of refused to do during his presidency, which was allow you to carry on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers land. Now, we've been able to carry in national parks, but anything under the jurisdiction of the Army Corps of Engineers, you couldn't. Well, under President Trump's leadership, and because of a lot of Second Amendment advocates writing into the Army Corps of Engineers, we were able to get that passed. That's like 400 lakes and rivers, 11 million acres. It's actually a pretty big deal that you can not only protect yourself, of course, in national parks, but also in the Army Corps of Engineers space as well. Now, one of the things that GOA actually fought with Trump over and Trump ended up signing was the Fix NICS Act. Now, there's a lot of information we could cover on this, but essentially, you know as well as I do that the NICS system is broken, right? You're dependent upon people to input information, and that really depends if the state has the people to put information in. But with the Fix NICS, you know, there was like extreme cases where, according to the GOA, like if somebody got a speeding ticket, right, that could be considered a bannable offense to own firearms. So NICS is really just a terrible system. And anytime they talk about strengthening background checks or fix NICS or anything like that, essentially what they're trying to do is throw more money at something that is just mismanaged and totally broken anyways. So there's that. Now, they do say, to give President Trump credit, that after they had a sit down with him, told him exactly, hey, this is what's going on, he actually redefined who was a prohibited person, and that is like a fugitive from justice, right? So he specifically named people in the Fix NICS Act, and he was able to amend that. And one of the last things that Trump did in favor of the Second Amendment was during COVID. Now, this is another big one, because essentially, under his direction with the DHS, they made gun shops essential businesses. Now, there were some states that went against the DHS, and under these DHS guidelines, most states adhered to that. Now, there were some states out there that decided they were going to go against that and not name gun businesses as essential, but the GOA was able to fight certain states with the direction of the DHS, and of course Trump was over that as well. So that was important, to be able to protect yourself at a time like that. 2020 riots, COVID going on, that was a absolutely crazy, it's even, to me, it's hard to believe that COVID or 2020 was a real year. I'd like to think of that one as a simulation, and hopefully we never go back to play that game. And there's a lot that he did. There's some things that he did poorly too, and he should be held accountable to that. Well, how does that compare though to Harris and Walz? Well, I've done an entire video, actually a couple of them, talking about Harris, but just some of the things that she's done. Mandatory buybacks, she's a fan of. Assault weapons ban, that's something she's promising. When she was DA out in San Francisco, she was one of the co-sponsors for a handgun ban, all handguns to be banned. Fortunately, it was actually eventually shot down. Well, it was passed by voters, and then eventually it got overturned. Red flag laws, universal background checks, all the typical talking points of the left. She is in favor of all of them. Then there's Tim Walz, the guy that is the responsible gun owner, right? The Elmer Fudd of the gun community, to a T almost.
I'm giving you to the count of 5 to apologize to me publicly for calling me stupid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And I'm a knucklehead at times.
And the same guy that says he can outshoot every single person that criticized him for the way he was able to handle his gun or not handle his gun. Well, he had a really good rating with the NRA for the longest time, right? But then he says after Las Vegas and then after Parkland, everything changed for him. So that's when he signed, they attempted to get an assault weapons ban up in Minnesota. That one didn't go through, but universal background checks, red flag laws, he was able to get that signed, I think back in 2022. And then there's J.D. Vance. This guy is an adamant supporter of the Second Amendment. We could go through all the things that he's done personally, but at the end of the day, this guy, he's one that can be trusted, right? So you got this guy, and you got this guy. You got this guy, and you got this woman, okay? Laying that all out there. You can see that while Trump is not perfect, he definitely was one of the more pro-gun presidents that we've had in a long time. You compare him to George Bush, George W. Bush, Clinton, Obama, compare him to Hillary Clinton and what she would have done. Yeah, compare him to Kamala Harris and the things that she wants to do. Just crazy. I mean, even look at somebody like Ronald Reagan. People look at him as an adamant supporter of the Second Amendment. Well, after he was out of office, he actually was one of the co-signers to support the assault weapons ban of 1994 that Clinton signed in. All right, so you want to keep that in mind. You never know who is going to turn on your rights. That's just a fact, right? There have been people that are adamant supporters. Tim Walz is a perfect example, right? Will J.D. Vance ever do that? I hope to God not, because I think it would be political suicide, to be quite honest with you. And it is for a lot of people, right? And so this is a really strong issue. We got a strong voice. And at the end of the day, to me, it is perfectly clear if you want somebody that's going to protect your rights, seems pretty simple. You want somebody that's going to go after your rights and at the very minimum, cause chaos, because the next tragedy, unfortunately, these things happen. You may get a lot of blowback. You may get talks of assault weapons bans and this ban and this restriction, that restriction. And then sometimes it just goes haywire. Remember in the Obama administration, we had some periods there where you couldn't buy ammo. Gun prices were through the roof. No gun shops had anything in stock, really, and when they did have it in stock, it was just crazy priced, and it made it really hard on gun owners in general, right? That's who it hurt the most, and that's what you have to look forward to under a Harris-Walz ticket. I think there's really only one clear option here, in my opinion. There you go. Now, was there any of these things that we laid out here that you kind of took you by surprise? Maybe you didn't know, maybe it didn't get enough attention, but you think it actually is more important to you. Did any of this change your mind? Either way, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold it down. Hey, make sure you check out Headshot Nation. It is the one and only gun and motorcycle community on the entire internet. And this is a place where you can actually start your own threads. You can do video requests. You can talk to other community members and get your answers. You can actually get early access and ad-free and exclusive videos as well. It is one of the best communities on the entire internet. Make sure you check out the link down below in the description.